England in 878 was not a kingdom of strength and certainty. It was a land on the edge of collapse. Most of what we now call England had already fallen. Viking armies had swept through the north and the east, tearing apart kingdoms that had stood for generations. Only one remained, Wessex, and even that survival felt temporary. King Alfred was fighting to hold it together. But far from the plans of kings and battles of armies, life for ordinary people moved on, quietly, relentlessly, and without any guarantee of tomorrow. If you stood in that world, the first thing you would notice is the silence. Not the silence of peace, but of emptiness. The population of the entire land was tiny, scattered across vast stretches of forest, marsh, and open ground. Most people lived their entire lives without ever traveling more than a few miles from where they were born. Villages were small, 10, maybe 15 families, roughly built homes clustered together like they were trying to hold on to each other. No walls, no defenses, just open land stretching outward, exposed to whatever might come. The paths between settlements weren't roads, they were scars in the earth carved by years of footsteps and cartwheels. In the dry months, they were dusty and uneven. In the rain, they became thick rivers of mud that swallowed boots and slowed travel to a crawl. And yet, these paths were lifelines. They connected people to nearby villages, to trade, to news, and sometimes to warnings. Rivers were even more important. Wide, slow-moving arteries cutting through the land. The Thames, the Severn. Boats carried grain, timber, wool, everything that kept life moving. A journey that might take days on foot could be done in hours on water. But rivers were also dangerous because they gave the Vikings a way in. Beyond the villages and waterways, the land turned wild. Thick forests of oak and ash, marshlands that swallowed men whole if they stepped wrong, open heath where wind cut across the ground without mercy. This wasn't a controlled landscape. It was something people lived alongside, carefully, respectfully, knowing it could turn against them at any moment. At the center of this fragile world stood places like Winchester, not a grand city, but a working town. Timber houses packed tightly within old Roman walls, streets filled with mud, animals, voices, a market buzzing with trade. Somewhere inside, King Alfred planned, judged, and tried to hold together something that barely existed, a future. But most people would never see that future. For them, the world was smaller. Their village, their fields, their home, their survival, and everything they knew depended on what happened next. Step inside one of those homes and the world becomes even smaller. A single room, low roof, thick wooden beams darkened by years of smoke. The air is warm, heavy, and stings your eyes. There is no chimney. The fire burns in the center of the room, and the smoke drifts upward, slowly escaping through the thatch above. Everything happens here. Sleeping, cooking, working, arguing, praying. There is no privacy, no quiet corner to disappear into. Life is shared, every moment of it. The day begins before sunrise. Usually, it is a woman who wakes first. She rises from a wooden bench, still wrapped in rough wool, and moves straight to the hearth. The fire must not die. If it does, everything becomes harder. So she kneels, carefully coaxing the embers back to life, a handful of dry grass, small sticks, then larger pieces of wood. Slowly, the flame returns. Light fills the room. Heat follows. Then comes water. Heavy buckets carried from a nearby well or stream. In winter, the ground is frozen, the air biting, the water painfully cold against bare hands. But it has to be done, every single day. Breakfast is simple. A pot set over the fire. Oats or barley stirred into boiling water or weak ale. Thick, plain, filling. Bread from the day before, if there is any left. No sweetness, no comfort food, just fuel to begin the day. And once the day begins, it does not stop. For men, the fields demand everything. In spring, the soil is broken with heavy wooden plows dragged by oxen. Seed is scattered by hand, thrown into the earth with hope more than certainty. Through summer, the work continues, clearing weeds, watching the sky, praying for the right balance of rain and sun. When harvest comes, it is urgent. Every hour matters. Grain is cut, bundled, carried, because if something goes wrong, if the weather turns, if the crop fails, winter becomes a threat. But even in winter, there is no rest. Tools break, fences collapse, firewood must be gathered, animals must be fed, watched, protected. Animals are survival. Cattle for milk and leather, sheep for wool, pigs for meat, chickens and geese for eggs. Bees for honey, the only sweetness most people will ever taste. Every animal matters. Losing one isn't an inconvenience, it's a problem that could echo for months. For women, the work never truly ends. Grain must be ground every day. 2 stones, one turning over the other, back and forth again and again until the grain becomes coarse flour. It's slow, exhausting work. And over time, tiny bits of stone mix into the flour, wearing down teeth year after year. Then comes bread, dark, dense, heavy, made from barley or rye, baked near the fire or in a clay oven. It forms the base of almost every meal. Alongside it is pottage, a thick stew of whatever is available. Onions, beans, cabbage, turnips, sometimes a bit of meat if they are lucky, often not. The taste doesn't change much, day after day, season after season. Clothing is just as practical. Wool dominates everything. Spun by hand, woven on upright looms that stand against the walls. The steady rhythm of weaving becomes part of daily life, a constant background sound. Colors are muted, browns, grays, off-whites, the natural shades of wool. Bright colors exist, but most people will never afford them. Leather is everywhere. Shoes, belts, pouches, tools. A small knife hangs from almost every belt, not as a weapon, but as a necessity, used for cutting food, shaping wood, repairing whatever needs fixing. And through it all, there is a constant presence. The smell. Smoke clinging to clothes, damp wool, earth, animals, the faint rot of waste just beyond the door. It is something people don't notice anymore. It is simply the air they breathe. This is life. Not a story of kings or battles, but a daily struggle to keep everything from falling apart. And yet, even in this routine, something else is always there. Something you cannot see, but you never forget. That feeling is fear. Not the kind that screams and disappears, the kind that stays, quiet, patient, always somewhere in the back of your mind. In Alfred's England, fear and faith lived side by side. You could not have one without the other. The church stood at the center of every village, a simple structure, timber walls, thatched roof, a wooden cross rising above it. Nothing grand, nothing impressive, but everything important. This is where life was explained. Children were baptized here, marriages were sealed here, the dead were buried from here. The priest spoke in a language most people didn't understand, Latin words echoing through a room of silent listeners. But understanding wasn't the point. Belief was. God was real. Judgment was real. Heaven and hell were not ideas, they were destinations waiting at the end of life. And in a world where survival was uncertain, that belief shaped everything. People prayed for rain, for healthy animals, for strong children, for protection. But more than anything, they prayed for time, because everyone knew what could come. The Vikings were never fully gone. They were a possibility, a shadow that stretched across every decision. You might go years without seeing them. You might convince yourself they were far away. Until suddenly, they weren't. A rumor travels first. A trader passing through mentions unrest. A traveler speaks of burned villages. The mood changes. Conversations grow quieter. Men begin checking the edges of their tools, sharpening blades that they hope never to use. Then one day, someone sees it. A shape on the river. Dark. Moving. Or smoke rising where there should be none. And in that moment, everything changes. There are no walls to hide behind, no soldiers waiting to defend you, just instinct. Run. Grab what you can carry, a child, a sack of grain, a blanket, and run. Into the woods, into the marsh, anywhere that might hide you. There is no plan, no order, just chaos. People scatter in different directions. Families lose sight of each other. Voices call out, then disappear into the trees. Some hide in ditches, some in hollow trees. Some never make it. And when it's over, if it ends, people return to what's left. A burned roof, broken tools, empty space where neighbors once stood. This is what the Viking threat meant. Not glorious battles, but moments that shattered lives in seconds. Alfred understood this. He knew that survival couldn't depend on luck forever, so he began to build something new. Fortified towns, places where people could run to, places with walls, with defenses, with a chance. He reorganized the militia so farms wouldn't be left empty. He created systems where there had only been reaction. Slowly, quietly, he started turning survival into something stronger. But in 878, that work was still unfinished. For most people, nothing had changed yet. They still woke before dawn, still lit the fire, still worked until the light disappeared, still listened for rumors carried on the wind. They did not know they were living at the beginning of something bigger. They did not know that the choices of their king would shape the future of a nation. They only knew their own world, small, fragile, uncertain. And yet, they endured, day after day, without recognition, without history remembering their names. They kept going. They planted, they cooked, they repaired, they prayed. And in doing so, they held everything together. Because England was not built in a single moment of victory. It was built like this, in smoke-filled rooms, in muddy fields, in quiet acts of survival repeated over and over again, until one day, something lasting finally took shape. Under Alfred, England was not finished. It was only just beginning.